This conference will now be recorded.
So multi-threading. Multi-threading is nothing but the process of executing two or more logics simultaneously is known as multi-threading. So for what we are doing is when we have multiple logics, maybe method 1, method 2, method 3, method 4, after executing one method, we are executing the next method, followed by third method and fourth method. So sequentially we are executing. So far, the concepts what are you discussed. But going forward, in case if you want to be execute all the methods simultaneously, parallelly, not sequentially, parallelly. So M1 has to be execute, M2 has to be execute, M3 has to be execute at once. Then the multi-threading concept will come to the picture. And this is one of the beauty in Python programming. So here there is no dependency of one method to one logic to other logic. Earlier, if the logic got failed in my first method, my subsequent methods will not be executed. But when I coming to multi-threading, if one method has an error, there is no dependency for the M2, M3. M2, M3 will be executed, and once you fix M1, then M1 also will be executed. So that way. So right now, if you see an example like class X, so I have a class name called X, def M1, and I have some for loop. Similarly, def F2, M2, and I have some for loop. Now, when you create an object x1 equal to x, x1.m1 and x1.m2. Now, if you observe here, I created a object or a reference variable called x1, and I started executing m1. After executing m1, I'm executing m2. Let me show it, then you'll get an idea. Now, if you see here, the same logic is created. So when you start calling the method work, there is a for loop which works on range of 10, 0 to 9, and it will print 0 to 9. And similarly, when you come to M2, it will be executed from 10 to 19. Now, if you observe here, 0 to 9 it's executed M1, and 10 to 19 it is executed M2. It is a sequential method, not a multi-threading. After executing M1, it's executed M2. Are you getting my point? What I'm trying to say? It's a sequential. It's not a parallel. Now here, first M1 method logic executes, then M2 method logic executed. So here the execution is sequential. It's not a multi-thread. If I want parallel, then go with multi-threading concept. Generally, the processor execute the programs if it is electronic circuit. So this is just for a theoretical purpose I maintained it. So the processor execute the programs if it is a electronic circuit, it understand the only power signals. The electronic circuit execute only one statement yet once at one time. So sequentially, it won't execute parallelly. So the electronic circuits do one after one. In the program makes M1 as one thread and M2 as another thread. So nothing but one logic is going to be take it as one thread, and another logic is going to take it as another thread. When M1 is waiting for input, meanwhile M2 logic will be executed and again switches back to M1 thread. If issues with M1, then continue with M2 until the program resolved. The problem resolved. Meanwhile, means internally only one thread is executed in the processor. So processor, a program under execution. What in my process means it's a program under execution, and thread is nothing but is a part of program or a logic executes simultaneously along with the other part of the program. That's called thread. So no need to learn all this junk. It's just for information purpose only. That red color one. Thread model. What happened to system? In the thread module, we have predefined classes. 1 second. In the thread model, we have predefined classes called thread, nothing but logics, which has method called run method by default. To make logic as a thread, keep the logic in run. So we have a constructor to ensure that automatically it has to be run, and we have a destructor. The sub when you're archiving the things what you want to do, you have it, and we have abstract. We discussed all these things. These are nothing but functions. Similarly, for a multi-thread, if you want to run parallelly, not sequentially, then maintain your logic under run. So we will override the run method of the thread classes, and run method logic behaves like a thread. Syntax: importing thread, importing a thread. So how you called import date and time, and import numpy, import pandas, all the classes. How you're importing the same passion. There is a class called threading. So import threading is nothing but you are importing a class called threading. Once you import, you can able to do multi-threading concept. So threading is nothing but inbuilt module which is available in Python. So class X, I am creating my own class for a user defined class extending thread, extending the threading class. So in bracket threading thread df run. I'm creating my own method called run. So it's a self, nothing but threading 2. For p in range of 10 and print p. So since I created like constructor, I have a run option. So system is going to be run multi-threading concept. Now print p. Now I'm creating my own object and I'm just click on x1 dot run. For y in range of 10 comma 20, print y I'm using. So here there are two things. One, the run option I created, the method I created within the class, and there is one for loop outside of the class. Both I have it. So the statement outside of the class uh, are treated as a main thread. So here for y in range of 10 comma 20 consider as the main thread, and the thread which is within the class we call as a subthread or a child thread or secondary thread, you can say, consider as second thread. If we execute the program, no multi-threading is performed because here run execution as a normal method. The reason is it's only one logic you have. It's not a two logics, it's just one logic, but not executed as a thread. In the above program, there are two threads, but not running parallelly because they are executed normally. One first y will be executed, then within the class you have only one thread, so the only one thread will be executed. So to execute parallelly, we not only the run, we also using start option, start function, you can say. Let me show you. You can see here import threading class X threading dot thread. So by using a class and by using a method, we imported the functionality inheritance, we did it. So it's nothing but the functionality whatever I have in threading, we extended our inheritance to class X user defined class def run. So run option, run method we imported and we created def and self. So thread is created. For p in range of 100, print something I'm trying to print it. The I mean to say character. The p is nothing but a number, numerical. I'm trying to convert as a character. So str I'm using string function I used plus some space I'm giving. End of the class. Now x1 equal to x. So main thread is created, nothing but the object is created. X1 dot start. Instead of using a run option, I'm using as a start option. So when I use a start option, the main thread, nothing but y, for y in range of 100 comma 200, and print y. So this y and this x, the within the run option what I have is the sub, both will be parallel executed because of start and run option. Let's see that one also, then you'll get an idea. Now you can see the numbers are executing side by side. In case if I use run option here, run will be a method but not going to be generate your sequential. You can see one after one. Are you able to see the difference? So when I use start button, if I use run button, not start button, first y will be executed, followed by x will be executed. Nothing but run option within the subclass, what you have, it will be executed. But when I use start, all the threads will be executed simultaneously. So it can be a main thread or a sub thread, or you have two different sub logics. Everything side by side, it will be executed. Now you can see side by side is executed. Amini and Giri are getting.
Yes, Amma.
Yes, Amma.
Is it confusing? Now I want to execute multiple logics together simultaneously. I mean to say parallel. So when you want to execute multiple logics, then create multiple classes. That is the easiest one. So import threading. So I'm importing my class X and threading.thread. So I'm extending the threading class to user defined class called X and def run. There is no other option like a constructor underscore underscore init underscore underscore. Similarly, you have to use a run option, run method for threading purpose. Self for p in range of 100, print p. So this class X has the numbers from 0 to 99. And similarly, I want to execute one more logic within. So create one more class. So class y threading dot thread. So I use it. The threading class is extended to y. So def run self I'm using. So thread 2 is here, thread 3 is here. So one logic thread is nothing but logic. So another logic here. So for q in range of 100 comma 200. So 0 to 99 you'll get it from the class X. 100 to 199 you'll get from the class Q, and print Q. X1 equal to X, X1 dot start. Instead of using a run, I'm using a start. If I use a run, it's nothing but sequential logic. If I use start, it's a parallel logic. So y1 equal to y, y1 dot start. So for r in range of 200 comma 300, print r. Now according to this, the main logic is going to be r for r in range of 200 and 300. This is the main logic, and two sub logics you have, second logics you have. But since I use a start button, then system will behave three different logics, and three has to be executed parallelly. So here total three threads are there, three logics are there, one main thread and two subclasses. So the two subclasses are nothing but class X and class Y thread. Now let's try to execute this. Now you can see the numbers, the three different logics are created side by side. 94, 194, 294. Three logics together. So when you want to execute parallelly all the logics together, then you can use multi-threading concept. And Python is you can say it's very good in this concept, like multi-threading. And some couple of programming languages doesn't have this concept. Suspending or execution of the thread. So temporarily you want to suspend the execution of the thread due to some reason, or you want to execute one logic after 10 seconds of executing the first logic. Those kind of functionalities you have in multi-threading. So we can suspend an execution of the thread temporarily for some time by calling a sleep or of the time module. So by using a sleep function, I can able to suspend the thread. So import threading for multi-threading purpose, import time. So time module for suspending the execution. So user defined class X in bracket threading dot thread. So when I from the threading dot thread, I'm going to be import inheritance I'm doing for my user defined class X def run self. So it's a logic. Now time dot sleep for in bracket the number of seconds you want to be suspend. So I use 10. So 10 seconds my first thread class X will be suspended. After 10 seconds it will be executed. So delay or suspend the time in seconds. So how many seconds you mentioned here, those many seconds this particular class will not be executed. And sleep open and bracket present in the time module for suspending. So just given one by sleep. So whenever you are using any function, prefix with your class. So time dot sleep. I am writing my own function, nothing but for loop I used 1 to 101 class Y. Again the same concept. Here I'm not used the sleep and the numbers from it's oh that is the reason. Okay, got it. For Y I created another class and I created for loop for 101 to 201. Now I use the start button. When I use start button, we expected since I use a start button, it should be multi-threading and should be execute parallelly, one of side by side. But since I use a sleep button in the class X, it will be suspend for 10 seconds. Then only it will start executing. And I use a sleep button before the for loop, so for loop will not be executed for 10 seconds. Let me see. Sorry. Now you can see here the numbers are executed for y class but not for the X class, and it's waiting for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds only my X class will be executed. X logic, it's waiting. Let 10 seconds forward, then it will be executed. It's over. Not able to find the difference, so 30 seconds. Half minute I given. Now you can see after half a minute the number started executing. Are you able to find the difference? Scheduling or suspending? Yamini and Kiri are getting.
Yes, sir.
So the number of seconds you don't want to execute your thread or a logic, just use the time sleep option. Then system automatically suspend the particular logic for some time. After completion of the the number of seconds, this logic will be executed. So suspending, there is another example. So if you want, you can go through this. All these are a couple of examples for your practice purpose. So n multiple classes when we have n threads. So when we have n number of logics, we have to create a number of classes or another option. Import thread, import time, and class X run. I'm using a sleep option, print. Similarly, for your Y, the same example and execution. Now scheduling. So for example, I have 4 different logics or 4 different objects. That means 4 logics, 4 threads we have. So T1, T2, T3, and T4. There are four objects are created, or 4 different reference variables we created. Means we have 4 threads by default. Which thread should be executed first and which is to be executed next is nothing but we are using scheduling. So I have 4 different. For example, T1 equal to X, T2 equal to X, T3 equal to X, and T4 equal to X. Or T1 equal to X, T2 equal to Y, T3 equal to Z, and T4 equal to A class. So when you have 4 different logics, and 4 different logics means 4 different reference variable, nothing but 4 different objects. Now I need to decide which object has to be, which reference variable has to be executed first, and which is supposed to be second, which is supposed to be third. So how can I decide my sequence? Is nothing but scheduling. Scheduling involves the following things. How much time is given for each thread? You need to decide that. After scheduling time, which thread should be executed next? Once again, the same thread can be executed. This is called dynamic scheduling. So if you're able to execute the same thread which you executed prior, then we call it as a dynamic scheduling. Scheduling depending on OS. It's not depending on your local system. We cannot schedule the threads. It is not in our hands. It's depend on the type of OS and administrator. This is only for your information purpose. Do you know scheduling is we never do. It is depending on your administrator who is working with your OS servers. So there are 2 type of algorithms which is working for your scheduling. One is FIFO, the second one is round robin. So these are 2 type of algorithms we can use it, but these algorithms are for the OS vendors, are not for the programmers. So you cannot able to touch these 2 programs going forward. These 2, who is working as an administrator in your organization for servers, only those people can able to work on these programs. But just for knowledge purpose, I'm just telling you. Two threads are scheduling in such a way that thread 1 module should execute for 5 times and print current time. I want to execute my logic 1 and it should be display the current time. The time interval between the first execution and second execution should be 10 seconds. So I want to execute 5 times, and the difference between my first program and second program supposed the same program, recurring job. So there should be a gap of 10 seconds. And similarly, when I come into my second program, it is also supposed to be execute 5 times, and it has to be, the logic is to be print the current time, and the time job to job there should be a difference of 20 seconds. So that is my requirement. Now if you see thread 1, I just give an ID equal to 1 and name equal to thread 1 and delay is 10 seconds. Nothing but the gap between one job to other job, or one logic to other logic, the execution time difference. Thread 2, ID equal to 2, name equal to thread 2 and delay equal to 20. So these names you can modify according to your requirement. So import threading, import time. So time earlier I used for sleep function for suspending for some time. Now I'm using for delay purpose. exit flag global variable I created just for my information purpose. I just used it. Class myThread threading.thread, and I'm using a constructor here because it has to be executed automatically. And I'm using self threading ID comma name comma counter. Threading ID, name, and counter are local variables for a constructor. So threading.thread constructor I'm using means execute base class constructor. I'm using the base class constructor, not for the user defined class. So that is the reason I'm prefixed with the class name. The constructor what I have in my threading class, that constructor has to be executed. Now self.thread ID equal to thread ID. So that thread ID will be called self.name, name only it will be. So the name what I given, that name will be displayed. Self.counter equal to counter. Just I assigned my local variables to NSVs, non-static variables. I just assigned it. Now I'm using a run option. Print self.name, the name what I given, just print it. Display self.name, the name has to be printed. Self.counter comma 5 times it has to be displayed. Print existing self.name. So the name has to be print. Now when you use display here, the function what I called is from the constructor which is there in your threading multi-threading concept, and these are not created by you. So do not worry how it works, and this is only for information purpose I'm telling. So how this gap is coming and what is the function you have it within that, you can, Amar, I want to know what is the function, just use a function help option, you will come to know the logic. But right now I'm using the function which is available in multi-threading. That is the reason I'm telling I just call the constructor which is there in threading.thread. It is not create, the functions or methods are not created by my method, my thread, or my own user defined thread. It's called from the outside. Similarly, and 5 is nothing but the second step. Sorry, number of times I want to execute. So def display again the same. It is the function defined outside of the class def. I'm so definition I'm creating while counter, the counter is going to be so and so. If time to sleep is nothing but delay, the number of delays you want to give. Print thread name time cd time time off. So I'm going to be display the time. Now counter equal to counter minus 1. So while function I used, you have option of for loop or while loop. So every time I used to use for loop, so I used while loop now. So if I use for loop plus 1, I generally use while loop minus 1. So c time is going to be display the current time and uh, current date and time. So c time will be displayed. So I want to display the current date and time, and based on the inputs what I given of the thread id, name and counter. So if my thread id whatever I give like id 1, name is a thread, and delay is going to be so and so, system is going to be display the same. Now I just entered my thread in bracket 1 comma thread id minus 1, not minus 1, it's a name of the thread comma 10 seconds I want to give a display the delay between first iteration to second iteration. So and this is going to be assigned to one reference variable, nothing but object. And when you say use start button, system is going to be called back this my thread, and it's passing three different local variables, my thread, name, and counter. Counter is going to be the seconds. Name is nothing but the name what I given, thread ID 1, and it is going to be the ID. So these three local variables which I passed is assigned to non-static variables, and it is going to display here. And since the 5 is there, nothing but 5 times I want to be display. Any questions how it works? Am I going fast?
No, Omar.
Is it confusing or what? And this is not part of your job, for your kind of information. Scheduling. Scheduling generally handling by administrator. So I'm just running that one. I'm taking thread 1 has to be executed 5 times with a time gap of 10 seconds. Thread 2 has to be executed 5 times with a time gap of 20 seconds. So let's see how it works. So thread 1, thread 2 both started to parallelly. Now let's see. Now first time it's executed thread 1 with a time stamp of C time. I use a function called C time. Now within 20 seconds thread 2 is executed followed by thread 1 both. And again 10 seconds gap that thread 1 is executed because of you can see only the seconds. Minutes will not be changed, only seconds will be changed. So 5 times I think thread 1 is executed. So exiting from thread 1. The name of what we given is thread 1. So exit from the thread 2. So once both are completed, then exit from the main thread also will be there. So any questions in scheduling? It's only for theoretical concept, not don't worry about this.
No, Omar.
So tomorrow we'll start with synchronization and followed by regular expressions. These two concepts are pending in Python. We'll finish those two concepts, then we'll jump into Pandas, NumPy, and SQL connections. Okay.
Okay.